in to the hottest station on the planet.
Resistance is futile. The revolution has begun.
You're listening to Rebelpreneur Radio, helping you break the rules and build the business you need for the life you want. And now, broadcasting his pirate signal
from somewhere beyond the status quo,
here's your host, best-selling author, marketing and media strategist, Ralph Brogden.
Hello and welcome to Rebelpreneur Radio, the show that helps you build the business you need so you can live the life you want. I'm Ralph Brogden. In the last several episodes, we've talked about automation and leveraging your time. And for some people, that's a good thing. Other people are a little bit concerned about how much automation is going on, and artificial intelligence and robots are taking over the world and all of this. Is that true? Is that something that we should be frightened of? Or is it something that is actually going to liberate us? I think it's Alfred North Whitehead or something like that. I may have gotten it mixed up, but he said that civilization advances by reducing the number of things that we have to consciously think about. And so on the one hand, I want to leverage robots and computers and all the things that we have available to us. But then there's the privacy concerns and security concerns and all of the concerns. So today's expert is really knowledgeable in this area, and she's going to tell you what all of this means for your company, your strategy, and for you. I am speaking with Elatia Abate. She is an entrepreneur, a human capital expert, and a thought leader on the future of work. She builds solutions that empower people as technology disrupts our world. She was Global Director, Recruitment for Anheuser-Busch InBev and Vice President of HR for Dow Jones & Company. She teaches in the Continuing Studies departments of Stanford University and the University of Toronto. Elatia, welcome to Rebelpreneur Radio.
Ralph, I'm so excited to be here today with you.
I'm really excited to get into this because I see these videos on YouTube and people are saying, oh, robots are going to take over the world. It's going to be like Terminator, you know, and if we don't pull the plug right now, we're all going to die. Hopefully
That's a way to look at it, yes.
So
you might have guessed that my view's a little different.
Yeah, so I hope that I set you up to be able to share your point of view with us in a way that is going to help allay a lot of those fears that people have. So tell us, what in a nutshell, what does this mean for us and for our business and for the future of work?
Absolutely. So all of this disruption that we're hearing about, the impact on jobs, on business, and all disruption, I really look at as a synonym for opportunity. And so we are going to see lots and lots and lots of disruption, which really just translates to we have so much more opportunity than we have ever had. And when I say we, I mean all of us globally as a planet, if we learn some of the rules of business, of things, and of career that will shift thanks to this impact of technology. So it's massive opportunity for all of us if we're willing to jump on. So the explanation that I often give is that this can feel like a tsunami. And It can feel like the moment in the tsunami to get eerily quiet and the birds stop chirping and people start to look around and go, what's happening here? But this big wave of water is already coming. So like the thing's on its way. So we could wait to have the water bowl us over, or, and this is what I advocate for, grab a big old surfboard and opportunity that it is for all of us.
Yeah, so it sounds wonderful. So where do we start? How do we understand? How do we wrap our brains around it? Well, first of all, let me back up a little bit. I want to find out more about you. What got you interested in studying this? How did you get your start in this very niche market?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you mentioned in my biography at the beginning, I ran global recruiting for Anheuser-Busch InBev, and then I moved over and did a similar sort of a thing at Dow Jones. I quit corporate world about 5.5 years ago as a VP of HR. And one of the main reasons that I quit is that I got tired of meeting people who are wonderful and fabulous and interesting and creative, but not particularly engaged in the work that they were doing. And so I set out to help people create pathways to not just receive salaries, but to fuel and to create fulfillment inside of however they're earning their living. And in the midst of this, so teaching, speaking, consulting for companies, I began to notice these big trends in the market that had me really wondering, what are we going to do with all the people? And the first of those we alluded to is the 47 jobs in the U.S. are expected to be computerized or taken over by robots in the upcoming years. And that statistic can feel staggering. There's 65% of the jobs that will exist coming down the road don't exist yet. So it's not like everything disappears. It's just that, again, there's going to be a shift there. So there's that impact of technology, and then there's this mass population shift. And two things there are particularly interesting to me, which are first, thanks to this technology, it's expected that 3 billion people, like wrap your head around 3 billion people who have never had access to the internet and the educational and entrepreneurial opportunities that it provides are going to be coming online. And then this massive trend toward freelance work. In Europe since 2010, more than half the jobs that have been created are freelance. And so that includes medical doctors, that includes senior executives. So what are we all going to do when work as we understand it doesn't look like work? And that's what sparked in this idea. What are we going to do with all the people? Because I'm from Detroit. And so I saw and lived what happened when we don't think preemptively about these kinds of questions. And so there's a little bit of extra fuel there to help look for answers to the challenges that this presents.
Yeah, because when Ford began his manufacturing, that was kind of a big deal, and it created a technological shift and created a lot of new jobs. But then the horse and buggy makers went out of business, and now we're on the flip side of that. And now automation is replacing a lot of workers. So is this going to help? And you mentioned earlier about people who were not engaged at work. Is this revolution going to help us, or is it going to make us less engaged?
My opinion is that it's going to help us. Overall, I think it's going to help us. As I mentioned, as long as we are willing to get on board with the fact that things are shifting. That's I think, first and foremost. If we can get on board with the fact that things are changing and begin to look for the opportunities inside of the disruption instead of being afraid of it, then that's like a real entry point into growing inside of this space. And I really believe that the advent of technology is going to help us shift. So your question of engagement or fulfillment, work will shift away from something that most of us simply receive a salary for to the act of creation that it was always meant to be. Explain
to our listeners what got you interested in this field. What is it about this field that fascinates you and has made you one of the thought leaders and experts in this area?
Yeah, my awakening to this specific area came when somebody started talking about self-driving trucks. This is about a little bit over 3 years ago. And truck driving is the most popular job in 26 states in the U.S. And so I just was sitting with that. And on the one hand, I was thinking, because I'm very optimistic about these things, oh, how cool, self-driving trucks, this is going to be amazing. And then I thought, wait, hold on. Most popular job in 26 states. And so it's not just the truck drivers, but what about all those ancillary businesses that grow up around truck driving that all of a sudden, if there's no truck drivers, what are they going to do?
Yeah.
And that question, what are we going to do with all the people, really was born out of that. And then I decided to dive in and begin to understand things and the various both economic and sort of market factors that are impacting what this future is going to look like. And as I was studying this, I sort of found myself looking at a perfect storm that at once had me feeling, oh my gosh, this is the greatest opportunity that humanity has ever had. And at the same time, like a lightning bolt, what are we going to do with all the people?
Yeah.
And so that really sparked it.
Are we really going to get to a place where we don't need truck drivers? We don't need airline pilots? I mean, is that really in the future?
I see that as a distinct possibility. Not everybody would agree with me, and that's okay. I think that what we're going to see over some time, at least in this initial piece, and Uber has done some research, so take that with the lens of bias that it has. But actually, this will self-driving trucks will actually create more demand for truck drivers. It's just that the model will shift. So instead of big long haul across the country here in the U.S., it will be the automated trucks will do the big long haul, and then local drivers will do that sort of last mile.
Oh,
delivery.
Okay. So so work is going to shift. It's not necessarily going to be the way it's always been, and not necessarily eliminating as much as it is shuffling people around into different tasks. Is that correct?
That's exactly right. Shuffling people around, and some things will begin to disappear, and we're already seeing that. I don't know if you've been to a Wendy's or a McDonald's or any fast food kind of a restaurant lately, or through any airports. I know you travel. There are kiosks now to order as opposed to ordering directly from the human being.
Yeah.
Bank tellers are moving in that direction as well. And so what I share with people is we don't need to be so worried about the computers or about our jobs being computerized or automated or taken over by robots. It's paying attention to where that's most likely to happen first, so that rather than waiting for the change to come and disrupt you get yourself to a place where you're going to be out in front of that curve.
So what are the industries? And I'm going to ask what industries would be the ideal industries to be in. My initial thought is, man, the best place to be is in computer repair and software writing, fixing all of these problems. Because if you're depending on automation for all of these things and something breaks, you're going to have to call in the Geek Squad or something, right?
Yeah, exactly. So those of us who are able to understand how technology works are going to be in high demand. There's a huge uptick and spike in demand for people who are experts at or even have basic knowledge of cybersecurity related challenges. People who can understand how to blend how the machines work with how human beings work to make the overall thing more efficient are going to have plenty of access to opportunity as well. And this is where I think a lot of people who maybe have chosen not to go to a traditional 4-year school and are more technically adept will have a boon of opportunity, because by going to a community college or a trade school inside of some of these technical fields, you have a really fast, quick pathway to your own economic empowerment.
Well, that sounds encouraging, and perhaps even something that's going to give people who would not have had as many opportunities in the past. Now they can have the opportunities because they understand the technology a little bit better than the generations before. I mean, the children are growing up with their iPads and iPhones, and they seem to really adapt to that. And maybe they don't go to the traditional 4-year school, but they go and they learn how to code, or they learn cyber security. And that's already in big demand right now, just to get us to that next place, isn't it?
Exactly. You hit the nail on the head. And as we're seeing particularly in the United States market, the high cost of 4-year schools is not making economic sense for a lot of people. And so I think education is another market that we're going to see massively disrupted, because unless you want to go to school for research, or if you want to go to school for the status of going to a really great university, is it really true that you need to go to a 4-year school to have the greatest chance of economic empowerment moving forward? The economists would tell us, yes, still, that's the greatest predictor, but that's based on the assumption that that's the only pathway forward. What happens when the rest of the elements inside of the world begin to shift?
Yeah.
So I really see it as a lot more opportunity for everybody, again, if we begin to look for the places where that opportunity resides.
So speak to us a little bit about how this is going to affect us as Rebelpreneurs, entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, small business owners.
Yeah.
What kind of opportunities and is going to open up for us in business, and what do we need to be doing now to take advantage of these changes?
Yeah, Absolutely. There are three main, we'll call them categories, the three main places where things have shifted, where opportunity exists, and it's an easy framework to think about how to not only survive inside of this future context, which, by the way, is already here,
Yeah.
but also thrive inside of it. And that first piece is mindset. And the critical piece of mindset we alluded to a little bit earlier in our conversation. It's the distinction between being captive to the circumstances around you and waiting for things to happen and waiting for things to improve versus being captain of your own circumstances and saying, given what's going on out here, what do I want to create? What kind of value can I add? And where might there be opportunities for me?
I really like that. I like that play on words. You can be captive to what's happening, or you can be captivated by what's happening. How about that?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And in that word captivated, I love that shift that you made, brings one of the key tenets, I think, in also truly being able to thrive inside of this, because it's just the practice of resilience. And it really is this element of curiosity. Yeah. Instead of needing to know, instead of being a subject matter expert and needing to know exactly how everything's going to turn out, turning on that element of curiosity and asking ourselves, what can we discover here? First of all, it takes the pressure valve off of needing to be right all the time, because that's totally impossible. And secondly, it really opens up the gift of learning and seeing opportunity where we might not have been able to see it before.
I love that. And I do see that there is a generational thing at work here, because my mother-in-law, for example, she doesn't know anything about computers. She doesn't want to know anything about it. But my little 3-year-old nephew, he's like, oh, I can download Fortnite and play it on my iPad. And he's 3 years old. And it's like, what? So we do have to have that emotional and mental resilience and the right mindset, not to be held hostage by the technology, but and not to avoid it like my mother-in-law, but to embrace it and see where it can take us and how leveraging that technology can free us up to do things that only humans can do, which is the creative aspect of life. We can't do calculations as good as AI, but we can come up with creative stories and creative art and different things that we do. The thinking, I don't think the computer will ever replace the need for people to be able to think and to process and to feel and to intuit. Does that make sense?
It absolutely makes sense. And what you just alluded to actually hits on one of these other components that will help people thrive inside of this change. And you mentioned Fortnite. And Fortnite is a great example of one of the other distinctions that we have moving forward, which is that we're moving away from a world of or I'm corporate, or I'm entrepreneurial, or I am virtual, or I am local or global. And Fortnite has been able to show us, it's a game that at the beginning of February, there's a musical concert played inside of this video game. So there were people sitting around in their living rooms locally, playing with other team members globally. And inside of this virtual space, you have a concert there that people have bought tickets for inside of the virtual space, and clothing for, and new hairdos for their avatars inside the game. And so moving away from this idea that things need to be one way or the other, and looking at the possibility of how we might blend a series of things together, again, opens up the door to a lot of opportunity.
I love that. Now, you mentioned three things, and then I took you in a side trail. The first thing you mentioned was mindset, and you had two other things after that you wanted to tell us about to be prepared.
Yeah, absolutely. So mindset's the first piece. And if folks remember zero other things besides that, then we've done our job here today. The second piece is education. And the component about education is the shift away from what I call discrete education, meaning we learn in finite periods of our lives and then we're done learning. Mm-hmm. And the way that we'll need to learn going forward is continuous. So if those of us who have businesses, our own businesses, or we're leading teams inside of scalable businesses, the game becomes, how do we create scenarios for ourselves to continue learning? And how do we move, if we have a larger organization and we have people who we train, moving training away from some prize that you get for being a good performing employee where you get to go to Las Vegas once a year and turning it into an on-demand training for things that are going to be immediately applicable on the job. So it's education. And the third piece is collaboration. More than ever before, being able to collaborate and understand how networks work together and how you can leverage other people's resources to build something in concert is going to be critically important. And that kind of collaboration will be important at the level of market, because competition is no longer coming from the shop down the street who's doing something similar to you. It's coming from the market itself. And so coming together for mutually assured survival with former competitors is going to start to be important.
Yeah.
Collaboration is important at the level of company as we move away from a pyramid, kind of a hierarchical way of doing business, into what I call an infinity model, where today, because we're talking radio, you are going to be the person who's leading us. And so I'm going to be a follower. But tomorrow, because we're talking human capital, I'm going to be the leader and you're going to be the follower. And so both of us as leaders are going to have to learn how to slide behind the other one and take a position of leadership in the days and the times. And that has all kinds of impact for salary, for bonus, for titles, for all of these things that have been traditionally there. And then I think one of the most magical shifts in terms of collaboration is looking at how we collaborate in terms of our careers. And we move away from a career that's a ladder. It's climbing the corporate ladder, literally is that phrase, and shifting into a career that is a mosaic and pulling together the things that we are fulfilled by creating into the world into one big tapestry.
Very exciting. And, as you were describing collaboration, it made me realize that what we're doing right now is collaboration between WCKG, a terrestrial radio station in Chicago, but we're recording this digitally, and we're going to air it on the radio, but we're going to also simulcast it out to iHeartRadio and iTunes, and we're collaborating between the radio, terrestrial, and the digital experience, between live and on-demand, the Netflix effect. And so all of this technology has really changed the way that we do everything. It's already here. And so then it's just a question of learning to use it, not to be frightened of it, and to I guess roll with the punches and not get blown away by it. But again, I do think the most salient point you made is about mindset. If we can be curious, and that also goes into the education component. Discretionary versus discovery. Always be in discovery mode and be fascinated by what you found instead of frustrated by what you found.
That's exactly right, because everything is just one more opportunity to discover something new. And it really is the shift from being a subject matter expert to being a subject matter student, no matter how much you think you know about something.
Yeah, I guess we never really do get to expert status in the sense that I know everything there is to know, because everything is changing so quickly. You're never going to know everything that there is to know. You maybe know more than someone else, but you're never going to be the person who knows everything and is always leading. There's, like you said, there's got to be some following going on there as well.
You hit the nail on the head, and it was an illusion that we ever could know all the things. And one of the distinctions that I help people with is it's moving away from thinking about your career, your business strategy, what you do with your life, what you do with your business, from a mindset of a sniper. So I've got one weapon, I have one bullet, I have one target, and if I don't hit it, everything falls apart. And this whole fear of failure thing. Whereas if we shift over to the space of being scientists, what happens is, let's say you and I are working together. National Geographic decides to fund some research that we're doing. we're smart, we're prepared, we have all the resources we need, we're going down to the South Pole to discover some things, and we may even have some hypotheses about what we're going to discover once we get down there. But once we're there, all we're doing is collecting data.
Mm-hmm.
And so it moves this shift away from, I need to get the one thing right, otherwise my business will fail, or my career won't be as fulfilling, or all these things, and saying, is this working, or could there be something else?
Yeah, it's always the process of continual improvement, getting better and better, and learning as you grow, which is a really important mental characteristic for anybody who's going to run a business, especially someone who's going to be an entrepreneur. You work with, you do a lot of teaching and educating, but and also speaking. And so tell us a little bit about how working with you really helps companies and businesses and organizations to be prepared for these changes.
Yeah, absolutely. So I do this work on two fronts. One front I look at as kind of CEO whisperer kinds of conversations and sitting down with people who are leading organizations and showing how the models of business moving forward are different, and then helping them be able to implement those things. And when I work with individuals who are looking to craft careers, and be those careers freelance, entrepreneurial, or more traditional, helping them learn the tools of exponential thinking that will not only lead them to fulfillment, but to financial security and thriving as well.
Very exciting. Well, just a few minutes we have left. I want to ask if you are working on any particular thing right now that's got you really excited that you'd like to share with our listeners.
Yes, I'm always working on exciting things.
I
actually have two books. I actually have two books in the hopper right now. One is related to individual career strategy. So the robots are coming, how you can use them to create the career of your dreams. And the second piece is more related to business strategy. How do we create the business strategy that's going to unleash the power and potential of technology and allow us to grow in this space? So more to come on those very soon. And for those talent-related folks who will be in Nashville next week, I'll be keynoting at the Society for Human Resources Management Conference in Nashville.
Very exciting. Yeah. Well, this has been reassuring that it's not the end of the world as we know it, but there will be some changes, and we can benefit and grow and learn and profit from those changes if we will be flexible and have the right mindset, have an education mentality instead of a frustration mentality, and then look for ways to collaborate. So this has been very, very encouraging, and I think enlightening for our listeners who have a lot of questions about these things. Any final thoughts or big takeaway, word of wisdom you'd like to leave us with?
Yeah, I think that the main idea to leave folks with is that it's happening. It's already here. And so the choice comes down to, are you going to wait for the water to come crashing into the shore, or are you going to grab your surfboard or your boat or your kayak or whatever and ride the wave of opportunity that it truly is for everybody?
Excellent.
I know which one I'm picking.
Yeah. Well, it sounds very exciting. If our listeners want to find out more about you and your work and your books and your speaking, what's the best way to reach out to you?
Yeah, the best way to find me is through my LinkedIn page, because I am one of those folks who have created a mosaic career. And so if you find me at LinkedIn, Elatia Abate, you'll find all the magic there, how to contact me directly, and more about events and other consulting gigs that are coming down the pike. Perfect.
And we'll have that on our website as well as LinkedIn.com. And just do a search for Elatia Abate, Abate. We'll get that on the website so people can connect with you. This has been speaking with Elatia Abate. She is an entrepreneur, a human capital expert, and thought leader on the future of work. She builds solutions that empower people as technology disrupts our world. And she's the author of the upcoming book, The Robots Are Coming, and another book as well. So you can find out more about her, LinkedIn.com. Elatia, it has been a real pleasure to have you on Rebelpreneur Radio today. Thank you so much for sharing your words of wisdom with us.
Thanks so much for having me. It was an absolute pleasure.
You've been listening to Rebelpreneur Radio with Ralph Brogden. Download the show notes and much more at rebelpreneur.com.